is on chapters, hopefully the same in your book as mine is not. On the poverty chapter, which I believe is 10, capitalism, the economy, which should be 14, authority, which is 15, and then collective action and social movements, which is the last 18. That work?
Oh, basically what you told me.
So 10, 14, 15, and 18. And like I said, I almost hesitate to tell you this, but you can have a 5x7 card. I'll make it smaller if you want to make you all feel better like last time.
Nah. It's good,
But
I got a ruler at
please
home.
do not replace studying
With the note card.
with your note card. You can bring notes.
Everybody was freaking out over the 5x7.
Yeah, we spent more time answering questions about what 5x7 was.
Just
than
use
the
a
test.
ruler. Y'all should
Surprisingly
own one of
difficult for
those.
people.
Come on, guys.
Anyway, like I said, please do not screw yourself over by assuming that you can get by without studying. It's my experience, and I'm not saying this, I'm perfectly honest, right? It's my experience, even when I offer that, grades don't go up. Grades just don't go up. And I think that's probably why, because people don't take the studying part seriously, or don't know what to put on the notes, or whatever, so.
To be honest,
With that,
the notes didn't really help me, but it's hard to so.
okay.
Do you know
So
how many
if
of
I
the
were to
terms
ask you
are?
questions such as,
Do you know how many of the terms are?
which nation has one of the highest poverty rates in the advanced world?
Wait, say it again.
Oh, that's just B and C. Which nation? So, okay, listen, don't write every single word I write down, right?
I
Right?
have to.
The ones that you, so we can move faster. Which nation has one of the highest poverty rates in the advanced world? The United States, Great Britain, Canada, or France? You should know this because I just said it. Especially in relation to healthcare. The United States has the greatest poverty rates in all of the advanced world, the United States. Okay, I'm going to give you a few of these that you need to pay a little attention to, and the reason I'm picking out which ones I'm giving you is because I don't want anybody to think I'm giving them trick questions. Just don't overthink these. So according to sociological research, what drives American poverty rates? According to sociological research, what drives American poverty rates? Social structure, lopsided economic rewards, the richest 10% of the population, or unequal access to resources?
No, wait,
Is it the first one?
No, because everything has social structure. Even the most egalitarian societies have social structure. Social structure, so no. Lopsided economic rewards, the richest 10% of the population, or unequal access to resources.
So is it the richest?
Lopsided economic rewards, right? We're all working way more than we ever have. And I don't just mean students. I mean Americans work 3 times as much. Productivity has gone up triple over the last 30 years. And wages have not gone up. So who's getting rewarded for our labor? Not us. There's lots of benefits from, right? Who gets tax breaks, right? Wealthy. You know, Jeff Bezos paid 0 taxes last year.
Wow.
And then he has the audacity to give talks about motivation and hard work to achieve your dreams. How about you stop ripping people off here?
I'm sorry, it was lopsided
Economic rewards. Just remember lopsided, that's the word that's on here. Which of the following is a practice that supports the culture of poverty argument? And remember what the culture of poverty argument was. It's a very racist and classist theory for explaining why poor people are poor. It's not because of lopsided, you know, the theory doesn't say it's because of lopsided economic rewards, not because, right?
Which,
Hold on, okay, let me read it. Which of the following is a practice that supports the culture of poverty argument? Marriage, assisted living facilities for the elderly, Multifamily households were paying for daycare. Multifamily households, right? The culture of poverty argument, especially when it came to in the 60s and under the Nixon administration, you know, the sociological exploration of the black family. What they said was that, you know, because black families are more likely to have multi-generational families, they keep themselves poor. Multi-family households. It's not because of racism that black people are more likely poor. It's because the culture of poverty argument says that black people have a culture that reproduces poverty. Previous tests? Like the ones that you've taken, the first and second one?
Yeah.
Not with me. Welfare hinders work because of blank. So welfare hinders work because of blank. Time spent following bureaucratic rules, the fact that mothers have to take care of children and the home, trying to keep appointments to get food stamps, or all of the above. All of the above. Right. Right. Welfare offices often have worse hours than bank hours.
Yeah.
Right? So people, you're supposed to have a job, but if you have a job and you know it's part-time and unstable, you can't take off work, but yet if you don't make your appointment, you get kicked off welfare. There was a woman who was sent to prison for leaving her kids in the car for 10 minutes while she went in for one of her appointments. And the cops arrested her, threw her in prison while she was required to be there. And she said, I don't have daycare. And they said, too bad, you need to be here. So this one goes hand in hand with that. Government offices administering food stamps, blank. Government offices administering food stamps are not always optimally located for recipients, have limited employees to assist recipients, are minimizing welfare programs, or are reducing the number of recipients eligible for payment. You only need to know is they're not always optimally located for recipients. Government offices administering food stamps are not always optimally located for recipients.
Not always.
Optimally located. Optimal, like the most ideal or best or, you know,
So optimally
located for recipients.
located. So what's that?
It means they're very difficult to get to, right? There might be few and far between. You might not even have one in your own city, but if you have to make it to an appointment, like or if
Like the
any of you
IRS
ever, the IRS building, if you ever run an unemployment, good luck finding that building. There is one in Riverside, but it doesn't have it, you can't even find the doors on it.
They do it on purpose.
So, this one also goes in line with that. A lot of people who are eligible for food stamps in the United States don't apply for them. Why? They prefer to steal food. Because most people live in multi-generational homes, so they don't need it. They would prefer to die. Or they can't get to the government offices administering food stamps during operating hours. So a lot of people are eligible for food stamps in the United States, but don't apply for them. Why? Because they can't get to the government offices administering food stamps during operating hours. It's not a coincidence that it's like that, right? I mean, it's extra hoops besides all the paperwork and besides all the qualifications. Some policy experts believe that welfare creates more problems than it solves because it discourages people from finding work. This is also known as blank. So some policy experts believe that welfare creates more problems than it solves because it discourages people from finding work. This is also known as a social disease, a perverse incentive, the cycle of poverty, or unintended consequence. A perverse incentive. A perverse incentive means that it incentivizes, it gives people incentive to do something that was not intended, right? So it's not true, but people who are anti-welfare and hate the poor, what they argue is that by giving people welfare, that they don't get jobs because they'd rather just become dependent on wealth.
Can you spell the first word?
Perverse, P-E-R-V-E-R-S-E. P-E-R-verse, V-E-R-S-E. F-O Sachi.
What?
Only like 3 of you remember that.
You said
Yeah.
a perverse.
Perverse, yeah, incentive.
Oh, sorry, I was like,
And then somebody that welfare creates.
It discourages people from finding work. It creates more problems than it solves because it discourages people from finding work. What was one of the major outcomes of Clinton's 1996 Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act? You don't need to remember all of that. Clinton's bill. It's the P-R-W-O-R-A.
Wait, read the question again.
What was one of the major outcomes of Clinton's 1996 Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation? It's only, Clinton is only mentioned in relation to this thing, so don't. It forced the government to provide federally funded daycare for working mothers. It created more highly educated individuals, therefore eliminating people available for low-wage jobs. It caused children as young as 10 to have to join the workforce, or it limited the amount of time one could receive aid. Was that the last one? It limited the amount of time one could receive aid. Remember, Clinton, even though he was a Democrat, his policies were very comfortably, fit very comfortably within the moderate Republican Party at the time. Clinton really pushed the Republicans to the almost fascist right and moved the Democrats comfortably into Republican policies, right? This act was devastating to working class families because it treated all welfare recipients as lazy, unmotivated leeches on the system. Limited the amount of time one could receive aid. According to the underclass thesis, the poor are blank. So the underclass thesis, if you remember, the underclass was a term. You don't need to know his name, but just as a refresher, Ken Auletta, the journalist Ken Auletta, used the term the underclass for the purposes of demonizing the poor. So according to the underclass thesis, the poor are undependable, no different from the rest of us, deviant and dangerous to mainstream society, or unmotivated and lazy.
Last one?
Deviant and dangerous to mainstream society, right? He demonized the poor, right? He didn't just say that they were lazy, he said they were criminal, that they were pathological, that they were liars, they were cheats. Right, that's the underclass. Okay. Social Darwinism. Social Darwinism. First of all, what is social Darwinism? Y'all better remember this one. That's what it is, which is not Darwinism. So social Darwinism suggests that only the fittest survive. That people who are the smartest and most capable for survival are the ones who succeed in society. This can be compared to blank. We did talk about this, so just keep that in mind. So I'll read it one more time. Social Darwinism suggests that only the fittest survive. That people who are the smartest and most capable for survival are the ones who succeed in a society. This can be compared to blank. Oscar Lewis's Culture of Poverty thesis, Richard Herrnstein and Charles Murray's Bell Curve thesis, Clinton's war on poverty thesis or Gautreaux's moving to opportunity thesis? Which one?
Second one?
The bell curve. Richard Herrnstein and Charles Murray's bell curve thesis. Right. We talked about this. So the way that we talked about it was, if you've ever taken a psych class, or if you will take a psych class, inevitably you will come across this very famous book that came out in the 80s, I believe. It's a big ass book called. You don't need to know. Don't worry about the names. Don't worry about the names. Just remember bell curve. So the book is called The Bell Curve, and it's this entire thick ass book that outlines. Been criticized. I mean, it's taught basically to show how research can go wrong. But the entire thesis is that black people are intellectually inferior to white people. So what they say is, it's not black people's fault that they're failing in society. They can't help it. Biologically, they're just inferior to white people. Using things like standardized tests, right? We know that standardized tests across the board are culturally biased. I gave you this example before. If I were to surprise my Long Beach students with a test on the history of Riverside, and then the same week I gave you a test on the history of Riverside, I don't expect you to know all things about the history of Riverside, but what I can reasonably expect is you'd probably do better than they will. So think about an standardized test. Who makes up what knowledge is important, right? It's people with social capital, it's educated people, mostly white people get authorized as the authority. When we read history, American history, whose history we're reading? It's white history, right? And so standardized tests are culturally biased, sometimes very subtly. So what happens is, white male students do the best, usually followed by white female students, and then students of color progressively worse and worse and worse. So they use that as their data to back up this thesis that black students are inferior. The definition of relative poverty takes into account which important factor when determining poverty based on a percentage of median income. So what you need, so remember from this one, relative poverty. What makes relative poverty relative? Relative to what? Education level, location, employment status, or wealth? Location, right? You make $161,000 in San Francisco, and you might be poor, but bring that down to Riverside, Fulton, or Rialto. Location. So the definition of relative poverty takes into account which important factor when determining poverty based on a percentage of median income. It is, that's what I'm saying, like, don't get caught up in all the words.
Wait, I thought you were still on the previous one.
Oh, no.
So you just don't-
The definition of, okay, so this question, the definition of relative poverty takes into account which important factor when determining poverty based on a percentage of median income. And the answer is location. So I know we're out of time. If anybody has to go, I'm going to keep going. For those of you who are able to stick around, I'm not going to take offense if any of you act as a leader now.
Quick question, how many questions are?
40, that's the same.
For real?
When the official poverty line was first set, food made up the largest percentage of household budgets. In today's society, what now makes up the largest percentage? You should all know this one. What makes up the largest percentage of household budgets today? What is it? When the official poverty line was first set, food made up the largest percentage of household budgets. Yeah. So when we determine what the poverty line in the United States is, the formula it uses, food is the most expensive part of the budget. In today's society, what now makes up the largest percentage? Housing. I'm not even going to give you the other ones, just housing. Housing is by far the largest. A higher Gini coefficient, G-I-N-I. This is the next question. A higher Gini coefficient score means what? A higher Gini coefficient score means more inequality, less inequality, higher poverty, or lower poverty. A higher Gini coefficient score more inequality, less inequality, yeah, more inequality. Right? Inequality is measured based on the gap between the wealthy and the poor. So there are places that are poorer than the United States, but they're like poorer across the board. Right? When we measure the gap between the wealthy and the poor, the United States has the largest gap, so we have the highest Gini coefficient. G-I-N-I, yeah. Gini.
Make it 15.
What's the correct term describing an economic system characterized by the presence of lords, vassals, and serfs? Feudalism. Right? That's not lords, vassals, and serfs. Exists in feudalism. Very good.
And which chapter for in the book?
This one is, this one's authority in the state, or capitalism and economics.
I spoke
So,
feudalism.
just so you don't think I'm trying to fool you all again, the dominant economic system before the agricultural revolution was, the enclosure movement, the feudal system, post-industrial revolution, or the service sector. It's the feudal system. The dominant economic system before the agricultural revolution. So it was the feudal system, with lords, vassals, and serfs, kings, queens, royalty. That's feudalism. And then it moved into the agricultural revolution as we started finding new economic ways for production. So before agricultural revolution was fuel system. Fuel. F-E-U-D-A-L. How were you guys spelling?
Not that.
F-Y-O-O.
Something.
F-E-U-D. F-E-U-D-A-L. Like feud, like to fight, feud. Feudal. Family feud. That's yeah. You may read over. The dominant economic system before the agricultural revolution was the fuel system. A system of payment whereby workers are compensated on the basis of a wage that is not tied to the quality of raw materials, accidents, or other exigencies in the production process. Let me just get through it. I can see the eyes. A system of payment whereby workers are compensated on the basis of a wage that is not tied to the quality of raw materials, accidents, or other exigencies in the production process is referred to as the payment per unit, piecework, hourly wage, wage labor. How would you shorten that question? Where people are paid not based on what it costs to make things. That their wage labor, their labor is paid by how many hours they're there, right? So if we can find cheaper ways to make these carts and more profit comes to our business, it doesn't raise your wages. You're paid based on the hours you're there. I just take your profit. Right? That's wage labor. Wage labor. As a side note, people who work on salaries tend to work longer hours than people who work on hourly wage. You're obligated.
Okay, so.
Because you just have a job to do.
What should I remember?
Question you'll remember?
Yeah.
The typical American family today is what? The typical American family today is dual income, one where the father is the main provider, a single father, or matriarchal. Dual income. The typical American family has to have two incomes. Right? The second one, the one where the father is the main provider, it kind of implies that we're talking about like the breadwinner traditional model where the dad works and mom's the housewife. Most families are not single father. If anything, they might be single mother. And matriarchal families don't really exist in American society, where women are the ones that are the head of household. Participating, we talked about this on Tuesday. Participating in the wave at a baseball game is an example of what? You guys remember?
Oh. Yeah.
You're close. You're really close. It sounds like contagious because it is. It's the same root word. Contagion theory. Participating in the wave at a baseball game is an example of contagion theory. Now this is where we started today. The collective action theory, so the theory, that emphasizes the influence of leaders, so Coyote the Blind, in promoting particular norms is what? It's the only one with emergent in it, right? So contagion theory, emergent norm theory, convergence theory, or mass collective. The collective action theory that emphasizes the influence of leaders. So the theory that emphasizes leaders in promoting particular norms is emergent norm theory.
You said, what is it?
The influence of leaders in promoting particular norms. That's why it's called emergent norm theory, because leaders promote new norms for people, right? They become all freaked out with people, or they become very Alright, I'll give you one more. The aim of all social movements is to create social bonds, change society, solidify norms, or promote social evolution. The aim of all social movements is to blank. So what's the aim of all social movements? To change society. Doesn't matter if you're good or bad, whether you agree with it or not, all social movements are about changing society. So I was giving you well over half the exam, plus you get to have your note.
Barely half, it's not well over half.
How much did I give you?
20. Exactly 20.
I'll give you a couple more.
Okay, cool.
All right. Oh, show.
Hit it.
Bless your heart.
I feel like I don't have.
Affiliation with multiple group identities. So this is where we almost where we left off. Affiliation with multiple group identities. Blank. Is how you would develop your identity. Helps you identify with others. Is what makes you an individual. Or is how networks develop.
Networks.
It's what makes you an individual. Remember I was talking about that, right? Think about when you look up at the stars. You can feel very small, you can feel very big because it's our connection to all these big things that makes us important, right? We're not, I'm not, but you all are all students in here, which is one identity. But some of you are men, some of you are women, some of you are parents, some of you are brothers and sisters, some of you are workers, some of you are religious people. It's our memberships, our affiliations to all those different groups that's what makes you individual. If your only identity was student, you'd be not unique and individual, but it's your connection to all these different groups. Convergence theory states that collective action occurs when, we talked about this on Tuesday. Convergence theory states that collective action occurs when blank. People with similar ideas gather in the same place. Yeah, because they converge. When people with similar interests, similar ideas gather in the same place. Yeah, they converge, right? So, if I want to organize warehouse workers, where am I going to go to organize them? At the warehouse. Because they're there. If I want to organize students, I'm not going to go to Walmart. I'm going to organize them at school.
Yeah.
Because that's where you all are at. You converge in this one similar space. Feminist sociologists claim that the family wage is a patriarchal bargain because it implies that blank. So when we say patriarchal bargain, I know we didn't talk about it, it's in your book for sure, but we didn't talk about it so much in class. A patriarchal bargain means that women have to negotiate patriarchy, right? That they have to accept that patriarchy exists, but if they can leverage certain things out of it, then they have to make that bargain. So feminist sociologists claim, so feminists claim that the family wage is a patriarchal bargain because it implies that blank. Women depend on a man's wage. Women aren't smart enough to get a high-paying job. The money that men earn is most important. Or a family needs to have a male head. It's the first one, that women depend on a man's wage, right? So in a patriarchal society, women might want to work and do the same jobs that men do, but because the labor market is patriarchal and is sexist, they end up often having to depend on a man's wage. Claim that the family wage is an important patriarchal bargain because it implies that women depend on a man's wage.
No, I'm just gonna start with that.
Marx described workers as being alienated from blank. Marx described workers as being alienated from the process of production, other people, themselves, or all of the above. All of the above. That under capitalism, we become alienated or removed, or separated, or isolated from. Right? We don't get a say in how things get produced in somebody else's factory, even if we're the workers. We often can't socialize or have, we have to, can only do one job. Well, we can't be creative on our own, so it's all of the above. Monetization. Monetization refers to blank. You know what? I'm just going to give you this one. The establishment of a widely accepted currency for exchange. We establish money. Monetization. M-O-N-E-T-I-Z-A-T-I-O-N.
What was the answer there?
The establishment.
Monetization refers to the establishment of a widely accepted currency for exchange, which is what? Money. Monetization. To monetize means to create, exchange money, right? Like when I was talking about the time exchange, we're not, almost done. We're running late, but I got a freeze out there, but we're not exchanging through goods, services, trading and bartering, our time. We're exchanging what? Money. All right, you guys are gonna do awesome.
For
I'm gonna have some popsicles coming into this classroom. Make it real fun.
Oh. I was like, what?
All right, folks.
Oh, shut up.
Tuesday.
It was like,
Hey, regular scan. Skinny green scan.
damn, we got at least the seat.
Good luck with all your other